Welcome to the King and the Progress podcast. I am Mr. K.
And I'm Mr. P.
We are all informovers in that consuming information is an integral part of our modern daily life. We are informovers too, but of a different kind. What drives us is the epistemic curiosity.
For those unfamiliar with epistemic curiosity, don't worry. I wasn't familiar either until an hour ago when I Googled it.
Yeah, well done. Epistemic curiosity reflects a desire for new information that motivates exploratory behavior and knowledge acquisition. According to psychologist Littman, epistemic curiosity is an emotional motivation state that can involve positive feelings of interest associated with anticipation of learning something new, as well as unpleasant feelings of uncertainty due to lack of knowledge.
Yes, that's us. We want to explore complex ideas and ask novel questions. Sometimes we make ambiguous statements, and our ideas may be half baked, but our aim is to resolve discrepancies in our knowledge.
Absolutely. We're not as eloquent as Sam Harris, but we can promise you we will be more insightful than Kamala Harris on her best day. I am Mr. K.
And I'm Mr. P.
We give you the King and the Progress podcast. Okay, welcome to the second episode of the King and the Progress podcast. I am Mr. K.
I'm Mr. P.
Hello, Mr. P. How are you doing?
How are you doing, Mr. K? So, how are things other side?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So everything's fine, and it's our second episode, and our first episode that we released a few weeks ago had
Mhm.
two viewings. It's you and me then, right? So,
Probably it's you and me. Yep.
um, but for if we gain any audience or any viewers, they can always refer to our first episode where we said why we started this, and we said we don't care if other people's listen to us because um, you and me are two curious individuals and we want to talk, and we sometimes talk, and we said, oh, why don't we put it into a public broadcast or broadcast, and then people want to
Mhm.
listen, they can listen. If we only get 2 years, you and me, that's also fine, right? So we don't
Yep.
care. So that's how we started it. And for if we have new viewers, they can go back to our first episode. And we said why we did that because we you and me are like two curious people, epistemologically curious, and then we want to explore some ideas, right? um
Yep.
and uh, and then yeah, so just listen to our first episode on why we start this podcast. um and okay, so that this is our second one. um
Yep.
Mr. P. So okay, so we both hail from South India, as we said it in the first podcast, right? So um, we are cultural Hindus, at least for the first half of our life, right?
Yep.
And
Born Hindus,
born
maybe.
Hindus, bred Hindus, and raised as Hindus, right?
Yep.
Um, but we imbibed enlightenment values for some reason or other, right? So we are also
Mhm.
some culturally Western, for the lack of the better term, right? So Western in
Yes.
the
Yep.
Enlightenment terms, right? And we have those
Mhm.
values as
Rationality, maybe. Rational thinking and all.
rational, more objective and scientific. And it's not to say that we are right always, but at least we tend to be right, right? So I think
Mm. Yep.
that's the path that we both took. Um, you're based in Australia, I'm based in UK, and we since we emigrated, so we are like 12 hours apart in terms of timing. So we said, why
Yep.
don't we do this every other week, right? And then
Mhm.
just explore the the world of rationality, science, geopolitics, religion, culture, history, whatever we are reading and stuff, right? So
Mhm.
that's the theme. And So this is our second episode. Hopefully, we'll have a third viewer in this episode, but we don't care.
Yeah, we don't care. I'm like, I don't know whether you know about hackathon effect or something. It's more like if somebody's watching or we think that somebody's watching, we tend to be different persons.
Yeah, no, no, no,
Uh,
no.
so
We'll
I don't want to be that. It's just you. At least for now, I'll think that it's just you and me. That
yeah,
way, we are more.
original, all right?
Yeah, yeah,
Original, yeah, exactly. Okay, so this episode, given that we both hail from South India, at least originally, um, let's explore. At least recently, we had a temple that was inaugurated in India.
yeah. A big thing, big news there.
It's a big news. It's a big news, and dedicated to um, one of the Indian gods, one of the Indian gods of how many thousands of gods we have, but at
Yeah.
least is the main god. He's the protagonist of Ramayana.
Mm-hmm.
So we call him Lord Rama, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
so we had a temple, and the temple that was inaugurated last week or a few weeks ago by
Correct.
the controversial Prime Minister Modi. Controversial for various reasons, but we don't get into that today.
Yep.
Um, um, so at least, so we have a temple. Um, it's a birthplace of the protagonist of Ramayana,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a long history, both political, social, religious, and stuff. And
Yep.
India fought. We had so many sectarian violence. Um, for this dating back to the I don't know 1990s.
15th.
Well, no, I mean
It
at least
started in 15th century, then 18, then 19, then
correct,
after independence.
correct. So just to give our viewers a little bit of background, so the Mughals ruled India from somewhere around at least from 1280 to 1880 until the British took over. And
Mm-hmm.
during the 800 years between 1200 and 1880, um, we had Muslim rulers attacking India or invading India from Afghanistan and Turkey and Central Asia,
Mongolia, Mongolia.
Mongolia, yeah, exactly, Timur Lane, and Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Ghori and all these Muslim rulers who wanted to invade India, and they were successful in some parts. And then we had the Mughals, starting from Zahiruddin Babur, Akbar, and all the Mughal emperors. And
Mhm.
on the way, they destroyed so many temples. Uh,
Yep.
and
Again, the
yeah,
reason they destroyed the temples and all, or burning the books and all,
yeah, and then they
in
burned them.
earlier years, yeah, earlier years, the identity of certain person or certain religion used to lie, at least in Hinduism, in their temples, in their books, in their
Correct,
scriptures. So destroying them is equal to destroying their identity, and it's more easier for them to convert into whatever religion, Islam or
correct.
whatever
And
religion they
and
are.
it's not unique to Islam, but it was the same for
Uh, this
Christianity as well, right? So it
tried and tested method. Yep.
yeah, tried and tested metal to destroy the cultural roots, the idols and everything else, right?
Mhm.
um and they were partly successful and they weren't. India still, after like 600 years of predominantly Muslim rule, at least in the northern part of India, if not the southern part of India, still
Mhm.
Hinduism is 80% of Indians are Hindus. The religion sustained the
Yeah,
attacks
you
and
have to
stuff, right?
mention, or we have to mention, not only Islam, even Christianity
And
had
even
its
Christianity as well,
phase.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
So, what all I feel is like India, not only India, even China has the same thing. Like they have stronger cultural roots, which were hard to destroy.
correct.
Uh,
Again, I mean, even the Confucius and the Taoism and everything else is still prevalent, right? So so that's the historical part of how it started. So, and then the British took over in the 1800s, and obviously they left India in 1947, and we wanted Indian subcontinent with 80% Hindus and 20% Muslims, and maybe 17%, and then 3% of Christians, and we have all other
The other religions.
other religions, Jainism, Buddhism. Um, okay, so that's the history, and at least in the last 40 years, there is a revival of Hindu nationalism to say that
Correct.
okay,
Yeah.
we needed an identity, a
Mm-hmm.
Indian identity of based on
Mm-hmm.
some cultural values,
Mm-hmm.
and in the 1990s, at least one political party started that.
Stood out.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
they said that we need. Um, I mean, the thing is that because we have many gods and many temples that were destroyed, at least they said that the one predominant uh, temple that needs to be rebuilt, which was destroyed by the Mughal emperors, was the temple of Lord Rama in Ayodhya, is based on our historic epic Ramayana, right? And there's been
Mm-hmm.
so much of sectarian violence. Eventually, this went to the Indian Supreme Court, and archaeological evidence was presented that the
Mm-hmm.
the Babri Masjid, which is the mosque that was destroyed, I think it
Mm-hmm.
was in 1992 or 93.
91, if
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
something like
mistaken.
that. Yeah, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
by the Hindu nationalists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, indeed, indeed, they found archaeological evidence of a temple,
Mm-hmm.
and then Indian Supreme Court. I think it was in
19, I guess. 2019.
2019 said that no, the temple needs to be constructed. Um,
No, in some way, like, yeah, they agree or they accept that there was a temple
yeah,
before
they said that
mosque.
they have a we so at least they said that yeah, there's a right for the temple to be constructed, and
Constructed. This is
Muslims to be
how we will solve
correct,
this. Yeah,
and Muslims to be given a separate land where they can rebuild
correct.
their masjid, right, or the mosque. And then finally, the temple was inaugurated 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
And I'll tell you my, what can I say? I have a dichotomy in myself, even though I am a atheist and all.
me too,
But
right?
for some, yeah, for some reason, I felt very happy, elated seeing the inauguration of the temple. Probably I see my identity as a Hindu there. So I felt that for some reason, good or bad, uh, it's a right thing to do. I don't have any reason behind it, but I felt happy seeing that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm mostly there, um,
Yeah.
but where I don't want to get this out of hand is because there are lots of other temples that were destroyed,
Yeah, it
right?
can be a harbinger of something else.
Correct. So
We,
I don't want this to so basically unravel the communal.
but we don't have things in control,
Correct,
right,
correct.
Mr. K?
But
Uh,
I know. But what I'm going to say is, I am happy as well that uh, the temple that based on our 2,000-year-old epic, or at least 2,000 2 millennium of our historical and cultural significance, that unites India, right? As
mm,
so, I'm quite elated as well, right? As much as I'm elated, I just don't want this to be a precedence to you know to
something bigger,
yeah,
something worse.
something bigger and something worse, right? So to say that destroy every other historical grievance, um, and then and then stoke more communal tensions and in things like that. Right. So I'm happy with this temple, and yes,
For now, yes.
yeah,
We
for now.
don't know about the
We don't know
future.
the future, but I think what I mean to say is I don't want this
Yeah.
to be a precedence to stoke more tensions. And India is the India 40 years ago is not the same India today, right? So people are
Correct.
more educated. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want to stop here, right? So, but I'm quite happy as well. I agree with you that um the that
Not
the
for religious
no, not for
reasons.
religious reasons exactly, because you and I
Mm.
both are
Mm.
non-religious. Well, we are both atheists and small a atheist, right? And we are non-practicing Hindus, but we're happy,
Yep.
right?
Mm.
So I think at least if we have any viewers, but maybe it'll be good to explore a bit about Hinduism, right? And how do we think about Hinduism from a more non-theistic perspective, right?
Mm.
um, and uh, and people have different at least the world has a different apprehensions of what Hinduism is and things like that, right? So
Mm.
so it'll be good to explore that, and then by the end of the episode maybe we can conclude on um,
Mm.
what would be the future of Hinduism, right?
Mm.
And things like that, and then especially at the time that um, when we have the October 7th attacks with the revival of jihadism and
You went to Middle East. Okay.
exactly. So but
Mhm.
again I think how do we see Hinduism um, you know getting modernized going forward? And I do have some concerns that there is some Talib- Talibanization of Hinduism, right? uh, because
I have my own opinion on that one. See, October 7th is something, at least in my opinion, they piggybacked on a religion. It's nothing against Islam, or no one is fighting against Islam. There is not Jews versus Islam. It's more Hamas who is trying to put it on the wagon of Islam. That's what I believe. Okay.
yeah, but
And
they
Hinduism,
yeah,
yeah, Hinduism, I feel it's not a rigid platform,
no, no,
or
correct.
not. It's not based on something very rigid. It's very flexible. It's more what I personally feel is whatever you want to take in it, you can take it and leave whatever you don't like.
Correct.
So it
So
is more like a cushion wherein it can sustain the new ideology of people being more liberal and open.
correct.
For example, homosexuality, it did not ruffle the feathers of Hinduism with the prevalence of homosexuality and people coming into mainstream. It's okay with it. We have it in our religion, like Sikhandi or anyone, and we don't care. Okay.
Correct. I
I
mean,
feel because of its open and porousness, Hinduism might survive.
that's correct. So the Hinduism is much more open and tolerant, and it has all the DIE, diversity, inclusivity, and exclusivity ticked as part of our religion, right? So at least the religion that we don't practice, but it has been part of the Hinduism, which is more tolerant of any other ideas, right? And there's
Mhm.
Hinduism itself is not one code of ethics. You know what I mean? It's been
It's more like way of life,
it's always been
like peaceful.
evolving. Yeah, it's always evolved
Mm.
to include every other idea that is worth preserving, right? It's not to say
Mm.
that it's perfect. There are lots of bad aspects of Hinduism, um, but as a whole, Hinduism or the code of ethics of Hinduism is more inclusive than any other religion in the world, right? Um,
Yep.
so
I
before.
have a like, anecdotal example for this.
Mm,
Sai Baba,
mhm.
who is like fairly recent. It's not like 5,000 years old or something. It might be like maybe 100,
He's one
150
of
years old.
our newest gods, right? So I probably
Yes.
he's the newest god of Hinduism, right? So and this new god,
They embraced it with open hearts, and there are so many devotees, and
correct?
it's more or like
And I think Sai Baba, and if people, at least the viewers who do not know Sai Baba, at least I mean obviously the Indian viewers, if they listen to this podcast, will know them. But if you're outside of India, then you happen to encounter this podcast. Sai Baba, uh, I think Sai Baba is the god, is the most recent god, right? Um, who came to prominence. I think it's like early 20th century, right? I think I can't remember.
correct,
He was
correct.
born. Yeah, correct.
Mid
So
1920s, maybe. I don't know.
1920s, right? 1920s, and then he's a part Muslim, part Hindu god, right?
Correct.
Who came to prominence in the 1960s for some reason or other, 1970s, and he's not widely worshipped throughout the India, but he's a well-known god in India, right? So, and it's
Mm,
more prevalent in South India than north, right? So, so we have a modern god, and then we have historic gods going back to, I don't know, like 3,000 years, right? 3,000 years, right? So, okay,
mm,
so it's an amalgam. It's a melting pot of different gods, different ideas, different
mm.
spiritual spiritual movements and stuff, right? So yeah, so that's Hinduism for you, right? So going back, maybe I think we had to go back to the origins of Hinduism, and then I don't know what you think about this, Mr. P. Is that
Yeah, I
I
have like probably I'll take 1 minute or maybe 30 seconds.
yeah, yeah, no,
My take on religion, then my take on Hinduism.
mm,
Religion, what I feel is like it was more personal few thousands of years ago, and there were many religions, be it in Africa or be it in Asia. People had their own personal gods, be
yeah,
it a tree, be it a stone, be it a sun, whatever it is. It
mm,
was more related to nature, what they can see, feel, and touch.
mm,
Okay, it was never to control communities and all. Later, when Abrahamic religions came into being and people started living in wider communities, that is more than 150 people, they started putting those communal norms into the religion. They piggybacked it so that religion, they don't ask any logical questions or any reasoning, and they pushed it for greater good. It has its own consequences, but they want to govern people with iron fist or whatever
mm,
you can call it.
mm,
Then came like Judaism, Christianity, and probably recent major religion is Islam, wherein it has death for many things, punishment for many things, which only shows that it is more recent.
mm,
Okay. Hinduism, because it was more older and it was more probably even before the organized communities, it was more a personal god. You can have your own god and it is more porous, and it will give you all kinds of liberties. You can think whatever you want, do whatever you want. That's the reason I feel like Hinduism survived because of its customizability. I like this god this way. I want to do it this way. You can go ahead and do it.
yeah.
So it
There
has
is
a democracy in it.
yeah.
Hmm. Go ahead.
It has this free market idea, free
You
market.
can pick and choose. You can cherry
You
pick
can
whatever you like.
yeah,
This
exactly, yeah,
my favorite god, my favorite food, my favorite color, my favorite something. You can
correct.
have your favorites there.
There is a mimetic value, right, in Hinduism
Uh,
included, that the best idea wins, right?
and other thing I like about Hinduism is it celebrates more than penalizing you.
Correct.
Meaning, like there is
In
a
fact,
festival for everything.
correct. In fact,
And
it celebrates not only, it in fact
mm,
hates um, um,
confinements or
consignment, right? So
bigger.
it's basically
Mm.
it celebrates inclusivity, right? There's no other religion on earth that celebrates inclusivity as Hinduism, right? So
Major
not
religion, I don't know about others. Major religions.
major religions, right? So
Yeah.
I mean the whole Greek. um, the Greek or the Norse gods have different gods, and you have multiple gods for multiple
Mm.
things. And yeah, okay, they were celebrated, but at least in the, at least from what I, at least from the advent of the monotheistic religions, right? Um, Hinduism has always been the most inclusive religion ever, right?
And
And
I'll tell you the thing which I like is I don't think there is a term called blasphemy
correct,
in Hinduism.
there's no blasphemy, there's no blasphemy in Hinduism. There's no punishment for blasphemy, right? You could
Yep.
there's never been any antagonism for being a blasphemer, right? And
Mm.
we don't have anyone
Punishments.
we don't have
I
anyone
don't hear
killed
anything
because
like
of
you have to
blasphemy.
punish somebody or something.
Correct. So
It,
you could blaspheme, and maybe you could be ostracized to a certain extent, but you never get killed, or so lynched because of your blasphemous nature. So I think, in terms of, I mean, if I know that the whole world is trying to be woke and progressive, and there's
mm.
never been a religion that is more progressive, right, than Hinduism, at least from the religions that we know
Ye-
of, right?
Yep, with the minimalistic knowledge I have on Hinduism, at least, I think I have limited knowledge. But wherever I see it gives the books or scriptures gives you the way of life. It gives you, you do this, this will be helpful. You do this, or you approach this
Right.
problem this way. It's more like how you want to deal with your life. It's more the set of those things than if you do this, this is how you will
It's
be
not rigid,
punished.
it's not set in stone, it's not rigid. You don't,
Mm.
so yeah, that's the kind of thing. So
Mm.
so
That's the reason I like Hinduism.
correct. I mean, it's not to say that there are bad aspects of Hinduism and there are things that
Yeah.
needs to be reformed,
Yep.
but on the whole, right? um uh, if everyone was a Hindu, then the world would be a slightly a
Better
better
place.
place than everyone being a Muslim, for
Yes.
example, right? You know what I mean, right? So
Yeah, you took the word of the peaceful religion. Oh boy.
yeah, the most peaceful
Mm,
religion, yes, that Islam, right?
mm,
So
uh,
at least what they claim, right? um like Bill Maher has said, Bill Maher, right? So he said, yeah,
yeah, yes.
Islam is a religion of peace, a piece here and a piece there. from the from the
No, I'll tell you,
from
like we have a test case. We have a test case in this world
mm,
where we can see pure Islam. I don't know. I am not against Islam as such per se, but I have seen those examples predominantly. Pakistan, where they formed a state based on the religion, they still persecute people inside those religions, Shia, Sunnis, Ahmadis.
exactly. I
All
mean,
they want.
this is a classic case, right? So um,
Mhm.
I think there are more Muslims in India than in Pakistan, right? But we
Ah,
never had any Sunni Shia
so
tensions,
we
right?
don't know. For us, everything is okay. Our religion, other religion, we live in harmony. That's all. One other god out of our three million gods.
I think this is also the influence of Hinduism on the Muslim communities living in India, right? Because
Mm,
if you know that Iran and Iraq, a Sunni state and a Shiite, predominantly Shiite state, they've been at war. Both of them are Muslims, um, and in fact, they killed each other with chemical weapons and stuff. But at least in India, right? And although there are some communal tensions between the Muslims and Hindus, there are not many communal tensions between at least the Sunnis and the Shias, at least, and most of
correct.
the Ahmadi Muslims who have been
Ahmad is
persecuted.
correct.
Yeah, Ahmadi Muslims who are persecuted in Pakistan. They settled in India. There are lots of
Mhm.
Baha'i Muslims in India. There's no huge communal tensions. No one at least in India, a Sunni extremist. I mean, the Muslim extremists have caused lots of havoc to India,
Mhm.
right? Uh,
Mhm.
but there's never been a case of at least a Sunni Muslim in India blowing up in a Baha'i community, right? But which is a commonplace
Yeah.
in Pakistan, for example, right? Um, I think for me, at least from what I understand, is that maybe there is some influence of the tolerance of Hinduism.
I'll tell you one more interesting point which I
Mhm,
have observed about Hinduism. Dharma. Let's have some podcast on Dharma at some point of time.
mhm.
But Hinduism is perfectly okay if you put your dharma before your religion.
Correct.
Okay?
It's your conduct before religion, right? So conduct and
Correct.
righteousness, right?
So that can be your patriotism, that can be your sense of duty. You can put anything into your dharma, what you feel. And it can be before your religion, and religion is perfectly okay. Nothing, the sky does not fall.
Correct. I
But
think I
in
think
other, go ahead.
no, you're right. So your way of living that
Mm,
you think what is right
mm,
you put that before
mm.
what your religion preaches,
Yeah.
right?
So that's the reason what all I feel is in another religion, especially religion of peace, God is before your dharma.
Yeah.
So not country, not duty, nothing comes, just God.
Yeah.
That is pulling them back.
They're
Okay,
pulling
that
pulling them
can't
apart.
really.
It's very
Mm,
interesting to see,
mhm,
for example, right? Um, Indonesia, for example, right? Which had so much of Indian
mhm,
influence in Indonesia and Cambodia, and
mhm,
the Southeast Asia, at least, right? So
mhm,
um,
mhm,
I have no idea why they think that the at least because most of the Indonesians are Muslims, right?
mhm,
I
mhm,
don't see how they connect to a a um, a god from the deserts of Saudi Arabia being their cultural influence, right? And I don't know
okay.
how they relate to them, right? It's only because that they put religion before their um, you know so they completely surrendered to an
No,
influence.
if it comes to your life, Mr. K, see, I have a choice. They'll kill me and my family, and I have to choose a
Correct.
God which for me does not affect in my daily day-to-day activities. So I have chosen it. Okay, be it Christianity, be it Islam, or any other religion, the persecutors who came in or invaders who came in. It's life versus something. I will choose life. Okay, and it's hard to change your beliefs once it goes beyond like 2 or 3 generations.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that,
Mm,
and the other aspect I find it amazing is that, for example, um, uh, Islam, at least the religion of peace, as they claim it, right? They basically
mm.
obliterated every historical roots of every country that's Muslim today. For
So are
example,
Christians, right?
Christian to a certain extent, yes, but Islam more
Mhm,
in terms of degree, right? For example, the Persian culture, um, the greats of um, the one, King Cyrus, who basically, I don't know if you know this, that the first declaration of human rights was, at
mhm,
least from what we know, right?
mhm,
He's a contemporary of Asoka, who's one of the Mauryan uh, kings of India, who basically came up
mhm,
with the same human rights
mhm,
chapter, right? Um,
mhm,
so this was going back to 2000 years, right? So, and Iran, as currently today, they completely
mhm,
obliterated any Persian roots, right? Um, the first kings 2000 years ago, which came up
mhm,
with the human rights charter,
mhm.
with tolerance as the key principle, and individual rights, right? So, I mean, the Iran today, with all the ayatollahs and the most oppressive regime,
I
which basically
I tell you
obliterated.
two things here. So, see, two things is first thing, you can't apply today's morality 2000 years ago or 2000 years ago
Correct.
in the past. The
Yes.
world situation was different. The reason I feel they converted people to their own religion is it's easy to govern them.
Yeah.
So I convert you into Islam or Christianity. I put certain temples, or sorry, certain churches or mosques or whatever religious leaders, and you can easily make them follow verbally than using might. You can suppress the revolutions if everybody thinks in the same God, same thing. It's easier to govern vast swaths of land where there was no communication,
Conformism.
no bigger military.
Conformism is the key, right?
So
So
that's a way of conquering certain things,
yeah.
right?
Right.
So I don't want to put morality into it. That's how the world was probably
No,
100,
no.
2000.
I think that's correct, right? So,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is that
Mm,
just giving a historical
mm.
context, right? So, and
That's the way of life.
right, and then they did. I mean, I think the reason that I raise this is because
Mm-hmm.
the with 800 years of Islamic rule in
Mm-hmm.
India, right, from
Mm-hmm.
1200 at least until 1800s, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, they try to do the same with um, Hinduism to
Mm-hmm.
to basically convert the whole of India into Islam. I mean, that's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
what the rationale of invading India,
Mm-hmm.
at least
Mm-hmm.
part rationale, right? Apart from looting and
Mm-hmm.
everything else, right? So
Yeah.
and for some reason, India withstood the conquest, right? If you look at
Correct.
the west of India, right, from at least from Pakistan, at least all the way to Turkey, is Islamic, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if you go to from at least on the from Malaysia, from the east of India, apart from some Buddhist influence in Burma and Tibet and
Mm-hmm.
even some southern parts of China,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much all of the Malaysias,
Mm-hmm.
Indonesia is more Islamic, right?
Predominantly in Islam.
Predominantly Islamic. For some reason, that India withstood the onslaught of um, Islamic traditions, right? And I think that's partly because of the the the, the tolerance and uh, the the inclusivity, right? Values of Hinduism, which basically, in fact, actually gave rise to some hybrid um, aspects of spiritualism, right? So the Hindu spiritualism and the Islamic spiritualism gave rise to Sufism, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it never could obliterate the core tenets of Hinduism, right? And India is the only country
Yeah,
with
I feel the same thing. I only feel, at least to my mind, what comes is it's like a shock absorber. There is nothing rigid so that, like, if you apply
correct,
some pressure, it
correct,
breaks. It is more like you can pick something, you can take, believe something, you can follow whatever God you like, you want.
yeah,
So there are no postulates as such.
correct.
So I am happy to follow that religion because it's not binding. It
It's
gives me
not
certain
binding,
set of
yeah,
peaceful
and then
circle.
it and then
That's it will survive.
yeah.
It
So
it has survived. It will survive for next foreseeable future because there is nothing. People are happy following it. It's my voluntary choice to follow the religion. It gave me that thing. Nobody
yeah,
binds.
correct. And maybe I think this is the time to delve into um the origins of Hinduism, right? And some,
Mm,
and
mm, mm,
I
mm,
think at least for some of the viewers who are not, at least
mhm,
it, they're not. If we have any viewers who are not Indians, and I think it'll be
mm.
better to give at least you and my view of how Hinduism evolved. And I don't think this is the perfect historical view. We are not historians or anything like that. We're just laymen,
Yes.
right? So I
What all
think
we know, what we have read.
I think we'll just go through it. So Hinduism, I think the origins of Hinduism started something like 1500 BCE or maybe 2000 BCE, right? So
Yep.
um, now, and we are going to probably offend a lot of Hindus on the way who believe that their religion is hundreds of thousands of years old, and
Uh,
the gods have given the religious texts to to Indians, and then we are supreme and things like that. So obviously we don't want to get into that, right? So at least from a more rationalistic viewpoint, um, so Hinduism started probably around the Indus Valley civilization, right?
Correct.
Um,
That's what I believe. Yep.
correct. And the initial Hinduism started with sacrificial, um,
As any other
like any
religion,
other. It's more
yeah.
ritualistic, and it started with Vedas. So um,
Even Egyptians have the same thing, right? They used to sacrifice to sun god
yeah,
Ra or
I
something
mean,
like
the sacrifice
that. Mhm.
is a common aspect of every other religion, right? So I mean, Hinduism
Mm.
is unique,
Mm.
and it's also has some commonalities with other religions, right? Um, so
Aztecs, I guess.
correct.
Aztecs also had the same kind of thing.
Aztecs, even in 14, because when the conquistadors reached the,
New World.
the New World, right, in the Central Americas, right? So
Mm.
they were sacrificing, interestingly, to the exactly the same god that every other culture.
It's more human way, I
It's
guess. They
human,
believe
right?
God.
So because
They
correct,
humanized gods.
the humanized god.
Uh,
So
uh,
at least the early Hinduism was more ritualistic, and it's very interesting.
mm.
So unlike the monotheistic religions of Islam, Christianity, Judaism, the Abrahamic faiths, right?
Mm.
Um, we don't have one God. It's not monotheistic. It's a blend of polytheism, paganism, deism, and every sort of ism that you can think of. The
I feel,
initial,
Mr. K, it's like various shops set up various
yeah,
in various places.
as we said,
They
it's a
got united into one bigger company called Hinduism.
yeah, correct. It's just a
It's
market.
conglomeration of multiple
Hin-
faiths and beliefs.
Correct. Hinduism was like a shop of OTT platforms like Netflix.
It's a Netflix of
it's
smaller.
it's got you have Prime, you have Netflix, and then you have Discovery, and then you have Disney Plus, and things like that, right? So everyone produced their own stories and their own and stories. So, and that's exactly what Hinduism was like. It's one huge marketplace of ideas, right? And the
Correct.
best,
Yep.
and then anything with mimetic value
Mm.
one, right? And
Mm.
there's a Darwinian evolution of Hinduism, that the best ideas won, and then they just survived to this day.
Yep.
um interestingly, the Hinduism that is practiced today in India
Mm. Mm.
um is quite different to the earlier forms of Hinduism,
Yeah, we
back to
adapted to the time.
yes, we are
Hindus, I'll
adapted
tell you
time.
certain examples.
Correct.
Sati. Sati is something that was one of the bad practice which piggybacked on societal bad practice which
So sati
piggybacked on the religion.
is the burning of the
Uh,
widows, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
We got rid of it. Widow remarriages,
Yeah,
whatever it is,
we
when people
reformed it.
came in,
Yeah, so
uh, we reformed it and we brought it mainstream.
correct.
So I feel Hinduism is more open to retrofit to the current times, whatever
No,
times
I
it
mean
is.
the Reformation is an integral part of
Mm.
Hinduism, right? But that doesn't mean to say that everything is reformed. I mean, there's so much scope,
No, there is
right?
always some
There's some scope, right?
chunks wherein,
Correct.
yeah,
But there's no other religion that is amenable to reformism, right? Um,
yeah.
and
I
it's
am getting an idea that we are promoting Hinduism being atheist.
no, I mean, no, I mean, for me,
Are you getting that feeling?
so I mean,
Yeah.
if it's like the best bad idea there is, right? So if
Yeah,
right, so if, I mean, to be honest, if I'm not religious and you are, right? Um,
yeah.
and if I had a knife at my neck to convert into one religion, right?
Same here. Yep.
Um,
Same.
I would probably choose between Buddhism and Hinduism, right?
Probably
Um,
more Hinduism because it's more celebratory than Vairagya sort of Buddhism, where it asks us not to have
yeah,
certain
I mean it's interesting as well because
earthly pleasures. Uh,
Buddhism is not a is something different to Hinduism because it's part of Hinduism, right? So and in fact
no,
and in fact
Hinduism out and out celebrates life, which I like.
correct. So as in all the monotheistic religions, at least the
Mm,
predominant religions are into this eschatology, that the end of the world, right? So basically they look forward for the
Doomsday Judgment Day.
end of doomsday and judgment day and the end of the world, right? For people to be saved into but okay, none of that malaki exists in Hinduism. So uh, Hinduism is more about um, living in the present, right? Then look forward to the doom, right? So I think these are the key differences that lots of people don't know about it, right? So um, so
Mm,
that's the root of Hinduism. So it started in what around 1500, 2000 BCE,
BC. Mm.
um, with more ritualistic. And interestingly, the initial forms of Hinduism, as they were ritualistic, was more sacrifices
Mm.
to the forces of nature, right?
Now,
S-
are there any sacrifices mainstream? Did you hear anything about it? I think
Yeah, I
they
mean
made it
there
to
were
the center.
sacrifices. So even in even in the Vedas are the closest to the primordial text, the canonical form of
Mhm,
Hinduism, which is
mhm.
not read. I mean, most people don't read Vedas anymore, and even if they do,
Nope.
they don't understand anything. But because
They can't relate it.
they can't
Relate to
relate
it. Yeah.
to, yeah, exactly. So so if you look at the Vedas, which is the first text of Hinduism or codified text of Hinduism, they are ritualistic sacrifices to the god of fire,
Mm.
um,
Okay.
and then you have a god of so you have Zeus, Indra the god of fire
Agni.
is very similar to the god of Zeus in the
Mm.
Greek mythology. And then you have Varuna, which is the god of I think it's cosmic justice.
Wind.
And then you have
Mhm,
Mitra,
mhm.
and the god of wind and god. So basically, you're
Uh,
looking at the forces of nature, right? The sun and the wind
Yeah,
and things
that's
like
how
that.
religions were at that point of time.
Correct.
Whatever you see, nature, that used to be God.
Correct. So and the initial, it was more paganistic, and they were basically worshipping the living forces, as in everyone knew that God is, and the sun god is sun is the main sustainer of every life, right? If you don't
Mm.
have sun, you don't have
Mm.
life. If you don't have sun, you don't have warmth, right?
Yep.
And it's very similar to the Greek mythologies, right? So
Mm.
the god, so we have a god for thunder, which is Indra,
Mm.
which is very similar to Thor, right?
Sure.
In the Nordic gods, right?
Mm.
And then you have the god of wind, and then we have a god of knowledge, which is Saraswati. In Indian, I can't remember, Athena. Athena is the god of knowledge in Greek mythology, right?
Mm.
So you have
I
god
like
of,
Greek mythology. Like I used to like I we had a non-detail called Trojan War when I was in my primary
yeah,
school or
Trojan War,
secondary
yeah,
school.
yeah, yeah.
I liked the way the stories. It's more or less analogous to Hinduism.
Very,
They
very,
had their
very,
own gods.
very analogous to
They had their
Hinduism.
own stories.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I don't know if I'm not sure if you, because as much as we think that the Greeks and the Indians, at least going back to 2000 years, were separated
Yeah, there used to
by
be trade.
2000, at least 5,000 miles of distance. But
Hmm?
we had the Silk Road through which
Hmm.
ideas
Getting
were
back.
yeah,
heritage.
yeah. So the ideas, because we have been trading with the Greeks going back to, if not at least for 3,000 years, at least for 2,000 years, and this idea diffusion, right? So the Persian, the Greek, and the Indian, and even the Chinese cultures were exchanging ideas and stuff. So I mean, it could be completely. You could comprehend that the same gods were invented uh, in Greece and India. Yeah, exactly, in contemporary terms, but it could be feasible because,
rebranded.
yeah, maybe there's some idea diffusion, that there was some exchange of ideas around the Silk Road, but I don't know. Maybe maybe we have to talk to some historians to give us some
Theologist.
insight, right?
I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But it's very interesting because we had the same gods, right? The Greek
Yep.
mythologies and then the Indian mythology had exactly the same gods, and so that was the earliest form of Hinduism, where the Vedic, um, and then at least from 200 BCE to 400 BCE were, at least in the Indian philosophy, there were texts called Upanishads. They're called
Mhm.
Vedanta. That is the end of Vedas, but it doesn't mean the end of Vedas, but the culmination of Vedas, right? So, and then whereas the earlier text of Hinduism, Vedas, were more ritualistic, and to but at least from 200 BC to 400 BC, 400 AD, were where the philosophical thoughts of epistemology, metaphysics, were written in Upanishads. It's more about the relationship and the nature of reality, and the relationship between the human and the spirit, at least the Brahman, the eternal nature. Um, so those 600 years is where the Hinduism um, moved from ritualistic into more spiritual and philosophical, right, realms.
You're talking about which period?
From 200 BCE. So this was probably at the time that Alexander attacked India
Mm-hmm.
uh, with the king Porus or Purushottam, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have one of the greatest empires in India is the Mauryan Empire,
Mm-hmm.
um, dating back to Asoka. Um, so at the same time that the Hinduism um, was morphing into more codified, gave right gave birth to other religions around 500 BCE or 400 BCE. Buddhism, um,
Oh.
Siddhartha, Siddhartha, who was actually a Hindu prince,
Mm-hmm.
who rejected Vedas, right, as the primordial text, right? So, and then the whole of Indian philosophical or religious thought split into two schools of thought. Two schools of thought.
So for some reason, I thought it's more like 4th century, not 400th century BC, if I
Uh,
correctly remember.
um, Maybe someone
Is it
else.
that old?
Some
400 BC?
400 BC is fourth century BCE, right? So maybe someone else will fact check.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay, 4th century. Okay, got
yeah.
it, got
I'm
it.
saying
Okay,
fourth century, right? So, um,
okay, okay.
um, and then and the Buddhism was basically a philosophical thought that basically rejected the ritualistic nature of Hinduism, right? So the whole
I'll
of
say spin-off from Hinduism.
nah, sorry,
It's a spin-off.
it's a
It's a
spin-off.
spin-off
It
from
is a
Hinduism.
spin-off. I mean, it is yeah, exactly. So
Uh,
so Siddhartha, who's the son of a king in somewhere around Nepal and northern part of
yeah,
India.
modern day Bihar,
No,
I guess.
yeah, exactly. And he basically said, okay, I don't, and the Hinduism uh, at least at the time that was practiced back in, was more ritualistic in nature. And then he said, look, I don't think
Correct.
that the
Yeah.
Vedas are the primordial texts, and it wasn't delivered by gods. And then he rejected the ritualistic nature and then adopted the more philosophical nature of mind. And then
I'm surprised, even though it's has its origins here. These monks, I don't remember the reason. They went to China, Japan, and they have some form of Shintoism or something, some form of Buddhism, which surprises me.
no, there's no surprise. So I think, at least from what I know, and then maybe we need to talk some historians who can. We don't want to talk to Hindu nationalists because they have their own view that everything is
Agenda.
they have their own
Uh,
agenda, and they say
uh,
that this has all been some colonial Western powers and things like that. And then Hinduism is like, has some, it goes back to hundreds and thousands of years, and then things like
no,
that.
no,
But
no,
anyway,
I
so
don't buy.
okay, so
There is no evidence for it. Let me put it that way. Show me evidence, I'll believe in
no,
anything,
but
everything.
the thing is that if you if you dig up, and then I've come across in various forums
Mm,
and WhatsApp
mm,
chats and things like that to say that
mm.
India had cellular network going back to
I
and
don't
like,
think.
oh,
We have been seeing.
yeah, and it's like, oh, they had, okay, they knew about everything about atomic,
And even
nuclear.
the flights, Pushpa
Yeah,
Vimana and all those things.
they had flights and then everything like that. Oh, okay, yeah. I said, okay, is there any archaeological evidence? There is like, no. And there's a joke to say that, oh, um we don't have archaeological evidence because they're all wireless.
No,
So,
I'll tell you something else. Similar lines. I think Ibn IBN, I don't know what's his full name. When Islamic people, like Islamic nations, conquered Spain, there is one guy called Ibn who had some wings and he tried to fly, and he had some mention about flights and all.
yeah,
Slow Islamic people claim that they already knew about it. These texts were stolen and the rest of them were burnt, copies of them,
yeah,
and
and then yeah, exactly,
West.
exactly. Yeah.
So everyone has their own
Everyone has
tale.
their
They
own
say
thing. They're like,
their,
yeah,
their civilization is better. We knew it much earlier than
yeah,
this,
correct.
but you guys burned the copies of my books.
Correct, because for some reason that neither the Bible, neither the Quran, nor the Hindu
Mm.
text of Vedas, they never talk about microbial beings like viruses, and because they didn't know, because until
Leave
Middle
alone
Ages nobody
kangaroos,
was
dinosaurs.
right. Look, no one said that, oh, there's a virus that's going around, right? So, um, so anyway, so we don't want to argue with
No, no, no. Enjoy them. I enjoy them. I
and
just recollect them.
no, it's entertaining,
And
right? Entertaining to say that
ah,
the ancient Hindus have every knowledge in the world, right? And it was like the British and the Mughals who destroyed everything else. Okay, that's fine. You can carry on in your merry ways,
uh,
right?
they like it that way. They like it that way.
Yeah, correct.
Uh,
So
Ibn Arabi, his name, a poet and philosopher. They think that he's the Islamic scientist. When somebody asks people,
yeah, yeah,
what is your religion people contribute, they quote him multiple times.
yeah.
Okay,
I
he
mean,
knows every shit in the whole world.
yeah, exactly. I mean, even in our epics, I think going back to Mahabharata, which is one of the main epics of.
Yes, inverse law fertilization. Kauravas
They
were
say
born
that,
that
yeah,
way.
Kauravas. There's like this. There's a mother who gave birth to hundred sons, and
That's so.
I was like, oh,
I'll be
because
tolerant.
they knew everything about test tube babies and stuff. They're like, okay, fair enough, right? So, I
Okay,
can't
for
argue
me,
because, yeah,
no. For me, if it is not replicatable, and if
correct.
it can be like reproduced,
Correct.
it's not it's
It's
not done.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh, okay. So 2000 years ago, they knew about in vitro fertilization. Very good. Okay, how many times has it been reproduced? None. Only in the mythological story. Okay, good enough. Okay, that's
Right.
fine. That's it. That's
Even the
it.
flight, Pushpa Vimana.
Yeah, but yeah. So like, okay, everyone used to fly. I
Show
mean,
me a formula. Show me
correct.
something which anyone can. true based on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you argue with some of these Hindu nationalists, they say that, oh, we had a formula for a flight and for an aeroplane. It's like, okay, where is it? It's like, oh, it's been destroyed. Oh, okay.
They burnt in Taxila. They burnt
Yeah,
it in
it's been
Turkey.
destroyed. I was like, oh, okay, it's been destroyed. So you're telling me that the uh, the
Mm,
whole of Mahabharata and Ramayana, the epics have been restored for 2000 years, but any scientific theories have all been destroyed. Okay, yeah, good luck with that, right? So I don't think we can
No,
argue with
let's
these
not
people.
argue with them. There is no point. So you can counter logic with logic.
Correct.
There is, if it is a belief, you can't counter it with logic.
I think there's
So
a
I
I
understand.
don't know who came up with this. They say that you can never you know extricate someone from a belief they've never been reasoned into in the first place, right?
Mm,
So
correct.
if they've been if someone believes something with no reason, you can get them
Mm,
out of their position, right?
yeah.
So that's how the world works, right? So and so that's the earlier forms of Hinduism with ritualistic,
Mm, mm,
and then there was some spiritual reformation of ritualistic nature of Hinduism, and this is where the Upanishads, the later books,
mm,
they call it Vedanta because they're the culmination of Vedas. They call it,
mm,
and the Indian philosophical school split into two schools of thought, right?
mm.
One is called Nastika, and which is very, very, very close to agnostic,
Close to.
right?
Yep.
Nastika school of thought, which says that we don't believe in Vedas as the primordial text, and then they have the Astika, which says that Vedas are the primordial text, but they moved away from the ritualistic nature, and then there's 6 or 7 schools of thoughts within the Astika school of
Mm,
thought, which is even practiced today with yoga. Yoga is one school of thought, but there's Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya,
mm,
uh, Dvaita, Advaita, and so there's 6 schools of thought. The Nastika school
mm.
of thoughts, which is the agnostic schools of thought in Indian philosophy,
Agnostic or there is agnosticism or atheism.
no, it's not.
Or
It's agnosticism of Vedas, right, as the primordial text,
agnosticism of
right?
Vedas. Okay.
Yeah.
Agnosticism
So
is there is some degree of belief, or there is zero degree of belief in
no,
in that.
they don't believe in Vedas as
Uh, uh,
the canons of Hinduism, right? But then
okay.
within, so they say that Vedas are not the true source of knowledge. And then you
Uh-huh.
have the agnostic school of thought, which is Buddhism, Jainism, right? Um,
Uh,
and you have Charvakas, and
are
Charvakas
there
are the
any practicing Charvakas in the modern day?
um, not really, because Charvakas are the materialists. They're the Ayn Rand philosophies of
Mm,
of Hinduism, right? So more objectivism
mm,
and empirical evidence
mm.
trounces everything else, right? So the Charvakas are the closest you can get to the Enlightenment era, right? Of the
Not
eight
related.
18.
Quick question. Charu Hassan.
Yeah.
The Charu last name, does it anywhere related to Charvakas?
I don't know. Charu Hassan is one of the very prominent film personalities, right?
Mm,
Inside, at least in South
uh-huh,
India. So I don't know.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
There is some atheist. So Charvakas are the closest to the
mm,
atheistic school of thought, right? Whereas the
mhm,
Buddhists and the Mahaviras were not atheistic in nature, right?
mhm,
At least Charvakas were, right? They say that there's no God.
mhm.
I mean, the Charvakas are very closer to the Epicurus of the Greeks, right?
Okay.
Um, so it's more that there's no God, um,
Mm,
and everything is naturalistic in nature, right? So
mm,
but at least, although there are 2 schools of thoughts, the the Nastika, which is the agnostic, and the Astika, which is theistic. Um, both were part of Hinduism, and Hinduism didn't exclude the the most
Yeah. So what
polemic.
all
Yeah, correct.
what comes to my mind is Hinduism is a bigger umbrella under which there are small shops.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not a religion. Somebody is governing it by a this thing that
So we don't
it
have
is.
correct. There's no
We
the
just group them as Hinduism
correct. So Hinduism
because it's
is
close.
just a
Mm.
melting pot of religious thoughts and non-religious thoughts as well, right? So, and
Yeah,
for
as you aptly said, it's more like a Netflix wherein you have multiple
correct.
series and movies coming under one
Yeah,
umbrella.
and then you have like you have different age groups and things like that. So you can watch a violent
Uh,
movie, or you can watch a you can
there are
you
like
can you can
agoras
have
and all.
yeah, correct.
Agoras are also. Uh,
So it's so because of this melting pot, and then at least like every other religion, um,
uh,
one of the prominent feature of why someone adopts a religion, or at least adopts a personal god, right?
uh,
Um, is mostly related to the royal patronage, right? So until the
correct,
kings and adopt
correct.
the religion, right, as a state religion. I mean,
Mm.
it's true with Christianity until Constantinople, right? Constantine converted to Christianity, the Roman emperor, right? Uh, if
Again, later stages, czars were like that in Russia.
correct,
Advent
so
of Christianity to Russia
yeah,
when
if not for Constantine, there would be no Christianity, right? If not for
correct,
if not for the 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 the, the Arabian kings who thought
correct.
that I could
Yep.
adopt Islam as something that I
Mm,
can use it
mm,
to
mm,
unify my power, right? There would be no
mm,
Islam, and it's similarly true with Hinduism as well, because if you look at the Maurya dynasty, which is one of the most predominant kings, was Ashoka. So Ashoka, um, I think people can fact check
they
this.
brought it mainstream.
It's
They
not
are like
mainstream.
celebrities.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Ashoka, I think it was something
Mhm.
like 100 BCE or 200 BCE, but I don't remember the dates. But
Uh,
roughly, he adopted Buddhism, right? And then
correct,
he made Buddhism as a state religion, right?
correct.
Um, and this is the Maurya dynasty, which is one of the biggest um, dynasties
Mm,
in India. And then from 200 AD to 600 AD is called the golden period. This is the gold, like the golden period of India is when the Gupta dynasty, right, um,
mhm,
adopted Hinduism, which is more. This is where the Upanishads and the Puranas, which is the other kind of texts that were written at the time, dedicated to the most um, the most prominent gods of Hinduism, which is Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma, right? So these are the main three gods of
mm,
the Hindus. So it was the
mm,
Guptas. It was a Gupta dynasty from 280 to 580, right? This is when the Buddhism declined, and then
mm,
the Hinduism, as it is practiced today, got into prominence.
mm,
And then from 400 AD to 600 AD was
mm,
the Harsha dynasty. The Harshavardhana
mm,
was the king, uh,
mm,
who was a Buddhist, and then
mhm.
he converted into Hinduism by
Oh,
adopt.
really? I did not know that.
Yeah, Harsha became from a Buddhist. He became a Vaishnavite, which is the devotee of Vishnu, right?
Ah, at some point of time, Hinduism was in, I can say, tantrums or in splits because of this Vaishnavites and Lingayats, I guess.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know
so
what
so
other
the main three gods of Hinduism,
Shankaracharya came in.
yeah, so the main three gods of Hinduism are Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, right?
Shiva.
So Brahma is seen as the Brahma or Abraham. Okay, and then
Oh, really? I did not
yeah,
know that.
yeah,
Is it?
Brahma and
Yeah.
Abraham is very closely related, and then um but Abraham Brahma is not something that is worshipped today, but Vishnu, who's the sustainer of the universe.
Mm,
So Brahma is supposed to be the
yeah,
creator of the universe.
correct.
Vishnu was the sustainer of the universe,
He
and
brings the balance
Shiva,
and he maintains the
yeah, and Shiva was a destroyer, right?
correct.
And but today, the Hinduism that is practiced today is mostly Vishnu, sustainer, and Shiva,
The destroyer.
who's the destroyer, right?
Mm,
So from at least from 480, 600 AD, um, is when the Hinduism was codified into. This is when the Puranas, which is like the mythological texts,
mm, mm,
were written. The
mm,
epic, the great epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata date back
mm.
to probably 100 to 200 BC or 300 BCE.
That's what
Um,
I presume. It's not like 10,000, 20,000, like some as somebody claimed.
well, at least if you talk to Hindu nationalists, they claim that this goes back to 20,000 years, right? But there was no agriculture at least until
Correct.
800
There is
BCE,
no.
until we had agriculture in the Fertile Crescent in Turkey, right? So you cannot argue with them because they're completely religious nuts, right? They have no clue of history, right? They have no
As again, like we can't argue belief with logic.
correct. So I mean that's where the Hinduism was pretty much codified between 200 AD and 600 AD, right? And then
Hmm.
and then Islam happened in 700, mid
629, 700.
750, and then within by 800 AD or 900 AD, then we had Muslim invaders attacking India. Um,
Not
as
only India, they went west also.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
went to
they went
like.
to the Spain and everything else, right? But
Mm,
um, so that's the Hinduism that is, but um, during the golden period of Hinduism was between the Gupta's dynasties. So the Guptas,
why
um,
do you think right now Hinduism is enjoying its golden period?
um, I don't think so. I'm really
Mm,
maybe I have a bias being non-religious, right?
mm.
Um,
So, what do you define golden age for certain religion?
no, the golden age was is when if you look at the invention of mathematics, um,
It's a contribution to the society
contribution to the
rather than
society.
number of people following it.
No. The number of people is, I mean, the number of people who follow Islam is of no consequence to anyone, right? The more people follow Islam, for example, is detrimental to society, right? So,
Mm. So is that the definition of golden period? If
no,
the
the
number
golden
is
period,
increasing linearly or
no,
exponentially?
the golden period is not is basically the contribution in terms of um,
Ah,
knowledge, right? So
contribution.
the
Now,
contribution
in
to the
this
society.
day and age, how can you quantify if some religion is contributing something to the greater or bigger community?
Um, not, I mean, it's very hard to say because
That's what I feel. You
yeah,
can't quantify it.
it's because we don't want to judge the thoughts of um, people living in the Middle
Mm,
Ages, right?
mm,
With the people that
mm.
live today, because we have more knowledge in terms of pretty much all aspects of life, right?
So I'll
So
give you a hypothetical case wherein, like, let's say you invented something and you contributed something and you got a Nobel Prize.
mm,
Let's say even though. like assuming that you are not an atheist and you are a Hindu, uh, um, most of the Nobel laureates are Christians. So, do you think Christians, it's the golden age for Christianity?
No, it's there is so I'm not sure if you there is a book called
Mm,
by
mm,
Jared Diamond, right?
mm,
It's called
mm.
the Guns, Germs, and Steel, right?
One of the famous books.
Oh
I
yeah,
read it.
yeah. So
Mm,
so it basically goes into the history of why um, one place or religion or a region, for
mm,
example,
mm,
right, is
mm,
better than others because um, I think the whole book starts with um, someone from Papua New Guinea, right? It's one of the aborigines of like that. How is it that how is it that you have all the cargo, which is the goods, right? The the
mm,
the latest technology, and we don't have, right? Is it that
mm,
because we are physically or mentally incapable to conceive?
mm,
I mean, could you train someone from the aborigines?
mm,
Can you kidnap someone from an aborigines of Papua New Guinea, right?
mm, mm,
When they were like 2 years, ship them
mm,
to Chicago or San
mm,
Francisco, and
mm,
he can become an Einstein, right?
mm,
Right. So basically, it's like,
mm,
how can you explain that we are very poor
mm,
with no technology, and you
mhm,
guys have so much technology, and then you have to read Guns, Gems, and Steel to understand
mm,
why the technological
mm,
progress happened
mm.
only in the Central Asia and Asia and the Middle East because of various
Various
influences.
reasons. I can cite like 4 or 5 reasons.
Correct. Yeah, it's because
Intermingled.
it's one landmass where the idea can be diffused, and there's this common
Mm,
set of domesticated animals in that
mm,
region. So think about it, right? So and if you ever come across a Hindu nationalist to say that 20,000 years ago we had so much technology, and it's like no,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
So at least in 1600, right? You have
Mm,
the South American, at least the Central
mm,
American Aztecs, right?
mm, mm,
They didn't have any technology,
mm,
whereas the Spanish
mm.
had cannons and gunpowder, right?
Correct.
Right. So you have you have people in Central America, right, who were still sacrificing people to sun god,
Mm,
right, with no
mm,
technology. Whereas on the other side of the globe, that you have people
mm,
people have cannons and guns, and and then we had technology and stuff, right? So even today, right? So if you think about um, some of the aborigines in the remote parts of um, Africa, right? We have the
mm,
Masai
mm,
Mara and the pygmies and the bush people, right?
mm,
You have
mm,
where they didn't have they don't have any technology today, whereas we have
mm.
we have America can actually have nuclear technology. So
Wipe the world if they
so you
want.
can wipe the world
Mm.
if they want, right? So it's not too uncommon, right? So
So
the whole
going
point.
back to what I started,
Yeah.
so what all I want to say is in this day and age, there is nothing like golden age for any religion.
No,
Earlier, earlier,
the golden age is in terms of religion. It's the golden age in terms of culture, because if the from the 200 AD to 600 AD was not only that Hinduism um, changed, but
it did not persecute Hindus,
no, no,
or it was more.
no, but this is when the exploration of knowledge was encouraged, right? Because this is
Um,
when Kautilya, um, the Kautilya or Chanakya
Arthashastra.
is the mastermind of the Mauryan Empire, right? And he wrote Arthashastra, the world on economics, and how to tax people, and then and then you have the
Mm,
invention of zero, right,
mm,
in India at the same time. and then you have the
And
invention
it
of,
spread
and
to
then
Arabs, then
astronomy, and
to
then to Arabs, and then it became so, because no one in the world could actually define what nothing is, right? So and then you have the decimal system.
it's more the decimal number system
Mm.
that helped a lot for multiplication or addition or
Correct.
something.
And then
Roman numbers, you can't do an addition, subtraction, or
exactly,
division.
I mean Romans had a huge civilization, advanced civilization, right? um, but they still were writing numbers with L and X and I and V and hundreds, and whereas the Indian mathematics was much more advanced, right? In terms of decimal system and stuff, right? So, and also the language um,
Hmm?
of Sanskrit, at least at the time, was much more advanced. It's more like from an upgrade of machine language to, into more programmable language, right?
Hmm.
Which was easy to parse and compile. So I mean, the advances that were the when we say the golden age was in terms of literature, in terms of science, in terms of mathematics, in terms of rationality. So this was when the golden age of Hinduism, right? Um,
Yep.
it does so, and that was, and then from like 880 to at least under 4,000 years, like there was dark ages in the dark ages of Christianity. We had a sort of slowing down of progress because of the invasions from Islamic.
Crusaders.
Yeah, exactly. And then so, but anyway, the Hinduism that is followed. I mean, it's very
Yeah,
interesting
Mr.
that.
K,
uh,
sorry to interrupt, but we'll try to wrap this up because I have other thing to take care
no,
of.
no, of course, yes, yeah.
Mm. Mm. Sorry.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
the Hinduism that is followed
Mm.
today is a completely
Mm.
is being influenced by different kings and things like that, right? So, uh, what we practice today um, has been
Do
influenced
we
in,
practice anything? So I'll tell you what we are practicing
not
right
you and
now.
me,
My
not you and me, not you and me,
no,
right?
no, no, my wife. I'll tell you about my wife, my mother-in-law. They have certain rituals to follow,
Mm,
certain these things. They follow those things so that they're they aspire certain things. They feel that if they do certain pujas or prayers,
mm,
they feel that they'll get it. So
mm,
that's what they do, and they follow all the festivals,
yeah,
the culture.
yeah,
That's all they are following. They don't read any religious books. They don't follow anything.
correct,
They are happy with what they're doing, and they are happy with the religion.
yeah. I think pretty much the whole of India is the most of the people who
So
follow.
that's the thing. That's unbindedness. They are bound very loosely. Okay,
Correct,
they
correct.
are bound by their celebrations. They are bound by way of thinking, their thoughts. That's all.
Yeah,
Nothing
I
binds them.
think that's what gives the Hinduism the
Mm.
flexibility
Flexibility,
to be
correct. It's
flexible
more
and to be
democratic. You can
is
come in, come out as you
correct.
like.
Yeah, and then yeah, exactly. And then it just gives people to give the freedom
Mm,
and the degree of
mm,
flexibility for them to follow,
mm,
right, loosely,
mm,
right?
mm,
And then
mm.
you can be very blasphemous as well, right?
There is no blasphemy
So there's no, yeah, I mean,
thing
what I'm
as
trying to say,
such.
there's no blasphemy rules, right? So um
No, there is nothing.
yeah, so yeah,
So
just to segue into why we both sort of celebrate, right, in a loose
mm,
sense, the temple of or at least the construction of the temple of Rama is
Lord Rama.
basically the Lord Rama, as is because it's the culmination of um, the righteousness and the philosophical thoughts and the religious
Mm.
thoughts for the last two millennia, right? Um,
I'll tell
but
you other aspect also.
mm,
Identity.
identity, yes,
So I identify myself as a Hindu. I come from India, and there is a unique set of identity for
We are
me.
part cultural Hindus, right? You, at least you and me, right?
Huh.
So
So that gives me an identity. And other thing is that what I don't like is the guilt. There is white guilt at the same time. There is a secular guilt in India. Okay, if somebody is religious towards their Hinduism, they think that it is not cool thing, and they must appease all minorities. In that, we have lost many things as Hinduism. We are losing our identity as Hindus.
yeah,
Okay, like the Modi. I don't know. We can say him controversial. For me, I like him because he's unapologetic. He's not trying to be politically correct. Okay, that's what I like in him.
there's
So
part of
he
that,
said that,
yes.
like, this is, yeah, this is what we are. This is what our culture was, and he's sticking to it without any what do you call apprehension of being politically incorrect. That's what I like. It's the
Yeah,
same way with Italy also, same way with Europeans also. They have to embrace
they're
what
going
their
back to their
culture is. That's
cultural
what
roots.
I
They're going back to their cultural roots, right? So
and you must not be you feel guilty about not being diverse
yeah, you don't
or
have to you don't have to self-flagellate of
uh,
being right. So you can still
mm,
embrace your historical and religious and spiritual
yes,
roots,
why
right?
why
And then
are
you
you
can
feeling
be,
guilty about it?
there's no point in being guilty about it.
Ah,
And obviously I have no misapprehensions that the Enlightenment era was partly due to the Judeo-Christian principles, right?
mm,
It doesn't mean that the Hinduism uh, is not amenable to those Enlightenment values, because we had those values going back to 2000 years, right? So um, but again, it's that kind of a thing that um, the tolerance has been the integral part of Hinduism, right?
yep.
And the
And for the first time
yeah,
in my living memory, uh, we it gave us confidence of being Hindus. At some point of time, they always give us a feeling that, like, being Hindu is like you have to make sure that you appease everyone. Okay, okay. So we need not appease anyone. You can be confident of your religion. You can practice your own religious this thing
yeah.
without feeling that others will feel bad about it.
Exactly, because I mean, we don't proselytize. Proselytization has never been part of Hinduism. We don't want people to convert into
Mm.
Hinduism, right? So it's very similar to
There is
Judaism
nothing.
again.
There is no process.
There's
I
no
was about
process.
to say that.
There's not even a process. There's not even an aim. There's not even a to say that everyone has to be Hindu, right? So it's like that. You practice what you want,
There
right?
is no process in Hinduism saying that, okay, after doing this, you are a Hindu now.
Correct.
Nothing like that.
I mean, you could be Christian and Hindu at the same time. You could be a you could
There
be
are
a
certain ready communities who name themselves Hindus,
correct.
or their names look like Hindus, but they are practicing Christians.
Correct. So if you are practicing Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and Hinduism at the same time, Hindus have no problem. So like,
No
okay,
problem
yeah,
at all.
it's part of it. It's like, okay, yeah, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. So um, so I mean, okay, so just to conclude, um,
Uh,
so yeah, I think it's a time to celebrate, but I think it's also time to reflect that um, okay, we have Indians have come at least a long way to restore
Correct.
their
Right.
identity and pride, right?
Yeah.
But we don't want to set a precedence to and then at least in the recent years I've seen some Talibanization of Hinduism, right? And we don't want to be like them, right? And
No, I'll tell you something. My take on this one: Talibanization or extremism of Hinduism, right? It has become norm of the day when other side is leaning towards violence, and
no,
if
no,
they
I
want to
think it's
cut
it's
your
there is
head,
there is it's a
you can't be going to courts and trying to put them in jail,
correct. It's a
right? You
it's a
can't.
the Talibanization of Hinduism
Mhm.
is not. a inherent nature of Hinduism. It's a reaction, right?
Exactly. That's
Right.
not how Hindus are. They are like,
Exact.
all right, they live in their own world.
Correct. So there is,
Hmm.
if it's a reactionary um,
Correct.
outcome, right? And but okay, so and I think there'll be the clash of this civilization aspect
In,
is not
it's
only just the
it's a
Hindus, but
reality.
it's a reality, right? Um, so it's going to continue, but
Happening in Europe, if you have seen it or not. In Germany, it's happening right now.
it's
In
happening in Europe.
Italy, in UK, it's happening.
It's yeah, to a small extent in UK, but it is happening. So um,
Hmm.
so in any case, so I think um, if you have to choose between I would I again I think probably we have to cover this in a different episode, right? If because there's some new atheistic um, way of thinking that the world would be a better place with no religion at all, right? And
No, I'll tell you the advantage of religion. We'll talk about it in next podcast. Religion has its own
its own
advantages.
advantages,
Okay,
right?
I'm not
So
completely against
correct.
of
So
like
correct. So we'll see how it pans out, but obviously religion is going to be here to stay for at least
as long
at
as
least
humans are there.
yeah, in one form or another, right? So the current religion is being woke, and then and then being the leftist religion is now the main religion that everyone is embracing
I'll
to
give you
say
let's
right.
say humanity is ending and our planet is taken by sun expanding and all, and we move to a different galaxy or somewhere in our galaxy,
Yeah,
and we all the humans start living there. Do you think that there will be Islam, Hinduism, or Christianity?
no, there'll be
Maybe yes,
some
maybe not. But again, there will be a religion.
there'll be
It
some secular religion, secular form of religious thought, right?
some religion who follow some dog poop religion, whatever it is. But there will be religion. People tend to gather in groups and
In
they try
groups,
to
and
fight.
yeah.
It's the human nature.
But anyway, I think the only
Mm,
as you and I believe that if there's
mm.
one religion that is I mean, if there's one religion that is worth, uh, you know,
Practicing.
practicing and is being rational, right? Always be objective, be rational, be scientific, empirical evidence,
And
and
don't harm others or don't harm yourself directly or
that
indirectly.
again, that's part of being rational, right? Because we are all rational
Uh,
beings, right? So
uh, uh,
so a
exactly.
rationalistic religion, if I think
Mm,
it's an oxymoron to say it a rationalistic religion, but
mm.
being but you could call it a rationalistic religion, which is basically a set of
Mm,
ideas based on rationality science, right?
mm, mm,
And objectivism, right? So and
mm.
okay, hopefully I think that's the future religion, right? um
And we won't be seeing it in our lifetime
we'll
for
see it
sure.
we'll see it in our lifetime, right? So on the note, it's been a
Yep.
blast, Mr. P. Right? So
Yep.
so hopefully we went into some aspects of Hinduism for at least from a non-theistic point of view, right?
Uh,
It's going to upset some theistic
we
Hinduists,
don't get
but
to
we
be.
don't care, right? So and yeah, so and that is our episode 2 of the King and the Progress, and we'll probably go into some further details in the next episodes, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's been a blast. Okay. You take care.
Yeah. See you.
Okay. Bye.